Okay, well, good evening, everyone. My name is Greg Daniels. I'm chair of the Herd Hoops Committee. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our first ever Herd Hoops Honor Roll induction reception. Tonight marks an important new chapter for Bison men's basketball. It's wonderful to see so many family, teammates, friends, and supporters gathered here for this evening to share this very special moment. To set the stage, I'd like to briefly share how we arrived at this special evening. The Herd Hoops Committee was established in 2023 with three clear goals: to support the Bison men's basketball team, to strengthen connections within our alumni committee or community, and to celebrate the proud tradition of Bison men's basketball. Since then, the committee has launched the Together We Rise fundraising campaign, introduced the Herd Hoops newsletter and web page, and created meaningful events like the Bison Family Fun Day and the Herd Hoops Alumni Night, which actually is happening tomorrow evening. In 2025, we took another important step by formally establishing the Herd Hoops Honor Roll with 4 categories: player, builder, pillar, and team. And that brings us to tonight, as we proudly induct 7 inductees and formally recognize 1 team, which was inducted last fall. But before we begin, I would like to thank Payworks, the proud sponsor of Bison men's basketball. Their multi-year commitment provides significant support to the program, and we are grateful for their partnership. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Kirby Shep, who's going to be bringing greetings to our group tonight. Kirby.
Thanks very much, Greg. Welcome, everybody. It's so great to see you guys here. A lot of familiar faces. And yeah, I'd like to echo some things that Greg said there. We're very, very thankful of the Herd Hoops Club committee. There's a group of guys that get together and volunteer their time and put in work to sort of put this all together. Greg being one of them, Rick, Ross, Ogo, Wayne, Andy, who I don't think is here tonight, but I think all the others are. But they put in tremendous amounts of time and effort, and specifically, Greg's done a tremendous amount of job. I know probably everyone in here gets the newsletter. That's Greg Daniels right there, and we're really thankful for his work there in helping us to connect. Thanks, Greg. So I'm hopeful this can become a great tradition. It's just before I became the head coach of this team, I had come from another program that'll remain nameless, and I knew some stories, and I heard some stuff from my coach, Bill Wedlake, who's a Bison at heart, even though he masqueraded in red for many years, but is a Bison at heart. And I heard lots of stories, and it was all about names at that point, and I didn't have a chance to connect, right? And I heard stories about Bullock and Wright and Torgerson. And then I heard other stories that would come in about Mills and Embry, Alfonso, Fry, Ball, Lavin, Gerben, Town, Wedlake, Stows. All great stories about things that happened, and I had no connection to me at the time. And then as I've come along, we started to connect those dots. And then there became Rumsey and Watts and Daniels and Watson and Riley. And King and Brothers and House and Garrow and Uggams and Bryant and Bridgeland and Philman and Virgo and Unger and Okomabua and Fust and Lucas And a lot of these guys are here today. And now we have other younger generations that I have connections with, right? Dean, Garcia, Walton, Ali, Aline, O'Meara, Wagner, Smith, Bassey, right? That are all connected. And the cool part is that tonight, my hope is that this comes to tradition and that we're all sort of start to connect those dots year in and year out. They don't just become names, but the stories become greater and become shared, and we tonight help connect a lot of those dots. So thanks everyone, welcome, and yeah, let's get started.
Well, thanks, Kirby, and all the best to the team as they play tomorrow night in a big game and on Saturday, the Duckworth Challenge, and of course for the rest of the season. So tonight we're proud to induct 4 outstanding players, 3 remarkable pillars, and to recognize 1 successful team, each of whom has made a lasting impact on Bison basketball. And we're going to begin with the player category. So our first inductee is Terry Ball, who traveled from Vancouver to join us tonight. Terry played for the Bisons from 1965 to 1970 and is joined this evening by family members and former teammates. To introduce Terry, I invite the former teammate, Ross Wedlake, to say a few words.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. And I'd just like to, before I do what I'm supposed to do up here, echo what Kirby said. Like, our committee has worked hard and we've all contributed, but without the leadership of, where is he, Mr. Young Greg over here, we wouldn't be here tonight. So big shout out to Greg, please. So I played 5 years at the University of Manitoba, 1966 to 1971. Now, when I say that out loud, that sounds like ancient history, and I guess it probably almost is. Anyways, I was lucky enough 4 of those years to have Terry Ball as a teammate. Now, why I say I was lucky enough, because there were a lot of misses up there for me to go and get. But over the years, we have made a lot of jokes and cracked a lot of wisecracks and poked a lot of fun at him for putting up a lot of shots. And he did. But that's not what I'm here to do tonight, because I was lucky enough to play with Terry Ball, who in truth was and still is one of the best ever to play at the University of Manitoba, no question. I first met Terry in my first year, so that would have been his second year. And I had come out of high school, and in high school I had stood in a zone, and I was in the gym one day. He probably doesn't remember this, and he asked me to play one-on-one. Now, talk about throwing Christians to the lions. I had never played one-on-one against anybody in my life. I didn't know what that meant almost. And I ended up playing against him. Now, to say he made me look bad, it would be an understatement. Now, he had moves. I didn't know. I had no moves. I should say I had one move, but he beat me so badly I couldn't foul him. But I had never seen anybody play like that. And it was, as I said, embarrassing for me. But I hope I got a little bit better. Terry had what I call a scorer mentality. And I think all teams, good teams, need somebody who has that kind of scoring mentality. And by that I mean Terry was always open in his mind. He believed no one could guard him. And he was usually right. No one could guard him. He was a big guard. Like, he was 6'3", left-handed. He was a tough matchup for anybody. I'm glad he was on our team. He wanted the ball all the time. And that's what scorers do. And it didn't matter if he had missed 2 or 3 shots. He knew the next one was going in. He was that confident. And that's what scorers do. They have that kind of scoring mentality, that they're confident in their abilities. And he did. He carried us many a time. No question. Now, in terms of statistics, I'm not going to bore you with a lot of stuff, but his credentials are pretty impressive. Now, in his first year and the second year, statistics are hard to come by. Now, I know in his second year, my first year, they're probably hard to come by because they were burned, because we were bad. But getting into his third year, he really came into his own, as they say. He was a first team. It was called the Western Canada Intercollegiate Athletic Association, WCIAA in those days. And he was first team All-Canadian or All-Star for 3 years in a row. He was All-Canadian twice. And in 1968-69, they didn't have a National Player of the Year award in those days like they do now, but he got the most votes for All-Canadian. And in my mind, that made him the National Player of the Year. And that was 68-69. But he was all-everything for many, many years. And I know, especially in my first year, where I was like a deer in the headlights, and he carried us, as I said. He was the man. And I wasn't fighting him for the position. And he did all of this with no three-point line. There was no three-point line in those. Thank God there was no three-point line. I sometimes wake up at night in a sweat, and No, I said I wasn't going to make fun of him. I lied. But I can tell you I have a tremendous amount of respect for Terry Ball. First of all, for all his accomplishments, no question. He could play. But I want to say something tonight that I never said to him before, because in his last year, which was my fourth year, the team had changed somewhat. And the emphasis now was on more of an inside, post-oriented game. And here was a guy who had been the top scorer for 4 years previously, going into his last year, and he was not forced, but he was expected to make that adjustment. And he did without any bitching, and he became more of a playmaker in his last year. And I always respected him for that, because it would have been very easy for him to start a lot of complaining, because he was, as I said, he wasn't the top scorer in his last year. And he accepted that and played through it, and I give him a great deal of credit and I respect him tremendously for that. So I could go on and tell you a lot of stories. Some might be true, but I won't. But I want to introduce to you, I guess he'll be the first, because he's B for Ball, the first person to be inducted into our Herd Hoops honor roll. He's a good friend of mine. He was a teammate of mine, and I can tell you he was a hell of a player. Terry Ball. My buddy. Yeah, look at that. Let's make it look like we like each other.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. It's a little bit sort of hard for me, because that's a great basketball player there, and he really was. And I have to talk tonight about players, because I'm into my 80th year, and I can't remember a damn thing about playing. I really can't. I can't remember games, but I remember people. And I was pretty lucky to play with a lot of great people. And Ross was sort of my first story. I don't remember the one-on-one thing. You sure I asked you to play one-on-one? Anyway, I watched him come in first year as a tall, 6'4", long-armed guy, because he had long arms. And he went from that first year to the best post player in Canada in his last year. That's pretty good. I played with him. There was other guys here, and I'm going to talk about them as I go, because it's always about people. I'm going to talk about two guys that aren't with us anymore, and they're the ones that probably changed me the most as a player, because those that knew me, I was really a cocky player. I really was. I wasn't very nice to play against. And I remember going in as an 18-year-old into that gym thinking that I'm the best player. I'm even trying out for this team. That's how I was. Isn't that terrible? That's my name, terrible. So I went into that gym, and there was about 100 guys at one end because Bud Fraser had left it open to everybody. We're going to make this team. You got a chance, this is the year. But there was a bunch of other guys at the east end, kind of Norwood guys that I didn't get along with, didn't like very much, but they were there. And then there was these three guys. One was a goofy guy, like he'd run around, he's about 6'4", very athletic, could handle himself, could handle the ball. And I watched him. Every now and then he'd pass this other guy the ball. The other guy would catch it, do the strangest move for a post guy. And all the post guys, I was a high school post, so I know how to play post. And I remember he did an out turn, and then he left the floor outside the key and dunked it. And I'm sitting on those walls in that old gym, and I'm going, I can't do that. What the hell was that? And I watched him. He kept doing it. And then there's this other guy in the corner chirping all, yap, 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 and had a laugh like you couldn't believe. He'd do a turnaround jump shot from corner. I could do that. And he'd make it. But he did it 44 inches off the floor. I couldn't do that. And I went, okay, now I got to get pretty humble. The other guy just was passing the ball to everybody. I made sure that those three guys were my best friends by the end of the week. Because if I was going to meet this team, I had to be with those guys. And their names were Irv Hannock, Eric Bartz, and Dave Golding. Now, Dave's the only one that's still with us, and I know he's living in the West End in Vancouver somewhere, and he's a tennis nut. And I run into him every now and then, and we talk. We always talk, and it's pretty cool, because these are people that you know. As I went through first and second year with Ross, we like to forget second year. It was a bit of a, schmozzle. 1-19 is not a good year. So I remember going into third year, and things were changing. My roommate, or teammate from high school, Teddy Stows, arrived back from Simon Fraser. He went to play for Kutnikov. I don't know what happened. Came back the next year. So I was in my third year. Teddy was in his first year. He was coming out for the team. There was some guy by the name of Town. He just kind of showed up. He was there, and I went, okay, this team is changing. And guys were starting to develop as really, really good players. And I went, third year we were pretty good. Smodiak was our coach. There's a story there with Smodiak. That's the team that we won our 1th game and our 1-19. He was on that team. And he came to coach us the next year. And I don't know if I've ever told anybody this story, but Darwin was a great player, great shooter. You could not believe how smooth he was. He just was a great shooter. And I remember he took a shot, and he was going to run in. My old post things, Rumsel will know this. I said, I'm going to box this guy out. And I stepped in front of him, I boxed him, and I never meant to hurt him, but he hit me, and he, like the noise, and he hit the floor, and I go, what the? I turn around, and I'm trying to help him up. They stopped the game because he was hurt. And he said, no, you didn't do anything wrong. You boxed me out. I should have known better. And then he came and coached us the next year. I was a little concerned that I had this guy anyway, Darwin was not that kind of person. He was just a great coach. Now we go into the 4th year, and Jack Lewis and his son is over here, and he was our coach. And I remember thinking, okay, what kind of team are we going to have? Well, they were a pretty good team. They were guys, the 5 guys that started just all became all Canadians, and we're all in the same team. They were good players. I have to thank one of them, because he made me the player I am, and he doesn't even know it. His name is Teddy Stows. Now, this guy was from Dakota Collegiate, where I'm from. He was smooth as glass on a jump shot. He had a wide base shot, which is very unusual. Most guys put their feet together, they front stop, they jump stop, but they're together when they gather. But not Teddy. He gathered wide base, but it was smooth. It would go in. But that wasn't his best trait. He was an animal on defense. He was just an animal. So guess what? He got the toughest guy on the other team. I didn't have to guard him. So I got freedom. I would never fouled out of a game. Why? Because I didn't play defense. Teddy did. Teddy helped. And then there was Ross, who I knew, my friend Graham Kinley, a lot of you know here. He had a line, he says, there, tell him the line. He says, what, I shoot, you rebound? Yeah, that line. He says, I shoot, you rebound, I shoot again, you rebound again. That's the way it went. But Ross got every rebound. I wasn't a great shooter, about 42, 43%, but Ross got every rebound. He was just really good, and he got better. So I can say that he helped me because I got a lot of an assists, but they didn't count him as assists, but I got a lot of assists, a lot of missed shots, and he up and in. And then I have to go through the guys that were, I'm going to get to you yet, Bobby, but I'm going to have to go through the guys that were on that team the next year, John Lavin and Ralph Schoenfeld. They're all here tonight. Ralph is my guest from Saskatoon. Wave, sure. There. Okay, and a guy by the name, you know he's going to be here tonight, John Gerben. John, you here? He's right here. Okay. Now, those three guys I just mentioned were either 6'7" or 8" or 8'7", but they were the next guys in the game for any of us that were starting. And Lavin and Schoenfeld had a thing. They always tried to lean out so Jack could see them first. Okay. And they did. And Gerbs came in for either Teddy or me, whoever got tired. And he was a hell of a player. He was an American he went to Mankato State, all right? Yeah, southwest of in Minnesota, but he was an American, but he fit right in, and he was a chirper. Always chirping. But he was fun. And those three guys were like the next guys in the game. So there was those, me, Ross, Bobby Town, and then in my last year, Cliff Cornelius. And I'll get to that story about me giving the ball up. Yeah, that was a tough year. Anyway, I just remember the best player I played against in my whole life was JoJo White. The best player I played with, and I played with some great players, was Bobby Town. And this is why he was so good. And probably a lot of people have never figured it out. But this guy could fly down the floor, but he could change the vertical real quick without any effort. It was a hard thing to do. If you're a basketball player, you know what I mean. But he also had something else. He had a 3, 4 foot, 5 foot range like I'd never seen. You know how hard it is to make that shot? When you're moving, that 5-footer is a tough shot to get in the hole. The guy from Denver makes it look easy, but he's different, right? He's 7 feet. Bobby wasn't quite 7 feet. I just remember that he was an easy guy to throw the ball to because he would always catch it. But his ability was he would catch it in a way when he caught it, he was square to the hoop and he never came down. He just put it in. He made me look really good. I was the best passer in the Western Conference because I had guys that could do things like you wouldn't believe. And that last year was a lot of fun because we did have a lot of time. We went from 1 and 2 in I think in the nation for the whole year, and it was pretty exciting. I was very happy to be a Bison. I was proud of it, and I think about it all the time. But those guys I think about, and these are the kinds of things that happen to you. 1989, I'm in Burnaby Gym. I'm playing in the Masters League, and I'm an old Masters, but I'm playing in the Masters League. And I hear this voice, chirp. I go, Gerben? I turn around, and there's the Gerbs. In the gym, I'm playing for the North Shore team, and I was playing for, we call ourselves the Pure Prairie League. I don't know where that came from, but, and we had one guy from BC who was about a 6'7" kid from Oliver, was an All-American at Oregon State, Sig Kyun, just a great player. And we played that, but we never got to the game because Gerbs and I were chirping for so long, we forgot about the game. The ref were going to throw us out of the gym. That's the kind of camaraderie that I say, like, just, it's pretty good stuff, right? Before I leave, I just got to say a couple of things. I'd like to introduce my grandson, Austin Ball. Austin is here to play hockey. I used to cut all the hockey players when I was a basketball coach. Austin is a goalie, so that means he plays defense. I never played defense. But anyway, nice that you came tonight, Austin. Thank you. And my buddy Sharon, I already mentioned, and Kurt. So the rest of you guys, you're all out-towners, and I'm not going to introduce all of you. But I have to say, this is a real honor. This is the best honor of my life, actually, because I've always been a Bison. I love the Bisons. And I can't play one-on-one anymore, so it's pretty safe. Anyway, thank you very much.
Congratulations, Terry. The next inductee is someone I played with for 3 years, Daryl Rumsey, and it gives me pleasure to invite his teammate, Rick Watts, to come forward and say a few words.
Thanks, Greg. I can't see with them or without them. Anyways, I figure that if the players left, all the players left, the average age would be about 78 in here, I think. Daryl's basketball career, first of all, it's a real honor to be talking about Daryl. I mean, I played with him 5 years. We both started at the same time, and we both finished at the same time. We finished on quite a high. And it was an honor for me to play with Daryl because every game, every practice, it was like he just gave it all. So I'm going to read what Greg gave me at the beginning here, just so I get it right. Daryl's basketball journey began at Windsor Park Collegiate. After sort of graduating, he moved to begin his Bison journey in 1971, which lasted 5 years. And I'm talking about like Daryl when he left Windsor Park. I think he was, I don't know, maybe a course or two short, right? Was that it? Yeah. 5? Like, anyways, Daryl was so good coming out of high school that Jack Lewis, the coach, latched onto him and said, hey, Daryl, we're going to get you those 2 credits in 6 weeks in summer school. And sure enough, Jack got him those credits, and Daryl was ready to go. Daryl, of course, concluded his career as a national championship winner, and he basically, when he left, he was pretty well considered the best, I think, Bison who ever played. I mean, we all thought that for sure. He was a 4-time first-team All-Star for the GPAC League, 2-time first-team All-Canadian, and I think that only Martin Riley has more than that. And he also received in 1976 an honorable mention All-Canadian. He was the team MVP for 2 years. He was awarded the University of Manitoba Male Athlete of the Year in 1976. And of course, Daryl concluded his Bison career as the all-time leading rebounder by miles and the 3rd leading scorer of the program at that point, only 2 points actually behind Angus for 2nd place. I'm not going to say who was the leading scorer. You all know who it is. You know, I can't see a damn thing here. So now, upon graduation, or pardon me, I've already said that. So remarkably, 51 years later, he remains the Bison single game record holder for 1 game for 23 rebounds. And that wasn't, you know, he had a couple at 22 and 20. So, I mean, he was an animal on the boards, I can tell you, both offensively and defensively. A fierce competitor, Daryl brought unmatched intensity, grit, and an unyielding desire to win, characteristics that defined his enduring legacy with the Bisons. He was recognized as a team leader who set the tone for all of us. Darryl approached every practice, every game with the take no prisoners attitude. He consistently outperformed others who were physically stronger and larger than him. He had absolutely amazing footwork. He had just this intuition of where the ball was going to go all the time. Usually when I had it, it was like coming off the rim. So he excelled in offensive rebounding, I can tell you that. Known for his unselfishness and vocal presence, Darryl was not afraid to hold teammates accountable, and I think that that's what all of us here who played with Darryl really understood about him. He regularly challenged his teammates whenever he felt that they fell short of their promise. Darryl and I shared, pardon me, I'm really having trouble seeing this. I'll try this again. I should have used like a 56 font. And Darryl finally, I think, he set a standard of excellence for us. His presence on the court was a driving force, and I got to tell you, I'm grateful for the 5 years I played with him, and then another, I think, 7 years with the Nicollet Inn. To share that journey with such an exceptional athlete and leader. Darryl, congratulations. You get out of here. You know, that joke's so old, it's like...
Thank you, Rick. That's quite the picture up there. I don't know when I ever looked like that. That's something else. Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Rick, for the wonderful introduction. Thank you all for being here tonight. It's a great turnout and a lot of familiar faces, a lot of people that I've played with and you know, had occasion to you know, be with and just, you know, glad so many people could make it. I just want to take a second to thank, you know, the Herd Hoops Committee for doing such a wonderful job on all the stuff that they've done for the program and for the alumni and the work that they put into it. It's really amazing. So thanks very much to you guys. Just want to recognize the other honorees here, Terry Ball, Rick Watts, Jim Wright, unfortunately not going to be here, John Lavin, Dave Mills, John Embry, just a wonderful group of people to be inducted with. Anyways, I first, you know, started at the U of M with in 1971 with same time as Rick, and I remember in high school going to the Bison games in the old East Gym and watching Terry Ball and Bobby Town and Ted Stoves and Ross Wedlake and John Lavin, John Gerben. And it was a wonderful. The atmosphere was just out of this world. People were cheering and yelling and screaming, and the place was full. And if you didn't get there early enough, some games you had to go into the old West Gym and watch the games on a screen and stuff. And I thought right at that time, this is where I want to play. And my first year that Rick and I both tried out, we were it was down to the last cuts, and we were both pretty nervous about it. And they were going to post the team on the wall in the East Gym on a piece of paper or whatever. So you know, Watsy and I were like, well, you go look, and no, you go look, and you know, we're like back and forth, and you know, finally we went and took a look, and fortunately we were both successful, and it was just you know, the best feeling of my life at that point. So our first year, unfortunately, we lost in the conference championships. But the experience was wonderful, playing with those guys and with Jack Lewis, second year we struggled a little bit. You know, we had our you know, problems, but the third year we Greg Daniels and Martin Riley came along. And we ended up winning the Golden Boy tournament at the time against some of the best teams in the country. And at that point, we knew we could play with anybody. And so we ended up winning the conference championship and going to the national finals. Unfortunately, we lost in the first game to St. Mary's by 2 points. But we didn't have both of our starting forwards. Both Rick Watson, Rick Stefanishin were injured. And I'm pretty sure that if both of those guys had been playing, that outcome might have been different. The following year, we made it to the national championship in Waterloo and ended up unfortunately losing on a last second shot, and which was heartbreaking, and you know, was very upsetting to guys, but it really inspired us to work that much harder the next year to get back to the point where we had a chance to win, and fortunately enough, that you know, we were successful at the time, and were able to you know, defeat St. Mary's in the final game to win the national championship. And one of the things, I mean, it was a joyous occasion for a group of wonderful people. One of the things I always remember was. Before the start of the game, just before the start of the tip-off, that my mom and dad and Ralph and Eileen and Pat, Rod Gilhooly, walked around the gym in St. Mary's, cheering for the Bisons against a cascade of boos, and didn't deter them at all, that they were there to support us and cheer us on, and it was just a very special moment. The guys I played with and that are with that championship team and with the University of Manitoba, special people that you know, we were teammates, and we've become longtime best friends. We see each other all the time. We support each other. We're like you know, a close-knit Bison family. So thanks you to those guys. Thank you to my wife and sons who supported me all the time that I was playing, through all the practices and games and road trips, and never complained. In fact, my wife used to say, when's the next basketball game? When can I go to the next game here? They're so much fun. They're great. So yeah, it's been a great time. It was great to be a Bison, and this honor tonight is I'll cherish forever. So, thank you.
Now you're going to return the favor to our next inductee.
I know. Yeah.
You're going to be introducing Rick. So
I'll just stay up
you
here.
might as well stay up here. No, I'm gonna do that for you.
Yeah, you got another 5 minutes of me here, so, okay. Yeah, I'm gonna need some paper for this because the guy I'm introducing tonight has got a ton of accomplishments here, and I don't want to miss any of them. Yeah. Yeah, it's a great privilege to introduce Rick to the honor roll tonight. Rick started with the Bisons same year I did, 71, after graduating from Dakota Collegiate. During his 5 years as a Bison, that Rick certainly showed that he was a great player. He was a 3-time conference All-Star, first team All-Canadian, 1976 National Tournament All-Star, the year we won the Canadian Championship. Also played on the Canadian Olympic team. That the year of his after graduation, he was the all-time leading Bison scorer and the 4th highest rebounder. That and he still holds the singles game record, 43 points for scoring for the Bisons. We all know Rick could score from outside and in the paint, but he was also a tremendous passer. A great rebounder, and his anticipation for loose balls, passes and stuff like that was uncanny. And I'm sure that Grant or a few guys would also like to comment on his that he would tell us that how great defense that he used to play, and that it was his forte, that was the thing that really made him tick out there. But besides his great playing ability, that Rick brought a level of confidence and leadership and accountability and a competitive spirit that inspired all of us on the team to get to that winning identity. Rick has done so much else besides his playing, that he's the glue that keeps us together. And has kept us together for 50 years, that he organizes lunches and dinners and special occasions. He sends out notes about birthdays and other occasions that are important to people. He connects everybody so that everybody is aware of what's going on. If you ever want to know the latest gossip, there's the guy that he knows everything that's going on, and so that kind of thing, and he's instrumental in organizing our 5-year championship reunion, where we just had our 50th here, that where we get together as a team and relive some of the experiences, get to catch up with people, and in talking to other basketball players and stuff, that is the envy of every other basketball program in Canada. to have that kind of camaraderie. And Rick played a key role in the establishment of the Together We Rise fundraising, as well as the Herd Hoops committee that, besides, as I say, being a great player, he was also named the athlete of the half century by the Manitoba High Schools Association. That he was inducted into the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame as a player, been inducted into the Manitoba Basketball Hall of Fame, that he was instrumental in organizing the Nicollet Inn basketball team that went on to win 3 national championships. Rick was the driving force behind that. That he was spearheaded the Friends of the Field program, which was to develop a community sports and recreation center around Dakota Collegiate. And if that's not enough, the guy had his street named after him in Winnipeg. How great is that? I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. So, to my teammate, my friend, my brother, congratulations, Rick.
Thanks, Darryl. Try these glasses again. You know, I might as well say it because I know Grant will. Grant was there when they unveiled the street name, and he said it's a no passing zone. He even got me a sign. He said, "Here, congratulations, you got a street named after you, and there's no passing." But I first of all, Darryl, thanks for all those kind words, and it was 5 years of great times we had. You know, it was, as everybody has said tonight, you know, being a Bison was one of the greatest things in their life. Terry, you know, once you're a Bison, you're always a Bison, and you have this great pride in being in the program and making great friends, and you're lucky enough to progress into, you know, and you have a winning program. It's like no other. And Terry raised a very interesting point about Dakota. I mean, I'm a Dakota graduate, so is he, and Teddy and Doug Freeth here, and Gord Potter, Gordy, yeah. And he mentioned that, you know, Dakota players are animals on defense. And I agree. I mean, like, everybody knows that my defensive prowess. I mean, Ross Wedlake never misses an opportunity, and he's like the keeper of all, has the key to all basketball in Manitoba. He said he's got all these pictures. He said he's never seen a picture of me playing defense. Never. He's probably right. First of all, I'd like to thank the Herd Hoops Club for this honor. It's an incredible honor. My 5 years as a Bisons were truly unforgettable, and I feel incredibly fortunate to have had such great teammates. Pretty well all of them have remained friends. This in itself is a tremendous blessing in my life. Darryl, I guess one of the problems with following Darryl, who was playing the same 5 years, he basically said 3/4 of my speech. So, all right, thank you very much. I'm out of here. Leave on a high, right, Ross? You know, as a high school player, just like Darryl said, you know, I vividly remember watching those legendary Bison teams of the late 60s and 70s, and I hate to say it now, idolizing those players like Lavin and Gerben, and, well, maybe not those two, but Wedlake, Town, Stowes, Angus Burr, and Terry Ball. And it truly inspired me going to these games. It was unbelievable. You just went to these games and you saw these guys play, and it was just like mind-boggling, and it just inspired you to you know, just train and be better. And hardly missed a game in 2 years, grade 11, grade 12. In fact, Dale Bradshaw, our coach at Dakota, when the Bisons were in town, our Friday night games in high school would be, the girls would play and then the boys would play, and he would always flip them so we could make it to the Bison game. And often, like Darryl said, showing up and the place is packed and we'd be sitting on the floor right up against that wood partition there. Never missed a game. And, I mean, those much older Bisons were the ones who really set the foundation. I mean, we have to give, I mean, Terry talked about, like, it was a losing program, really didn't have much hope, and then you guys grew and grew and grew, and you're the ones who formed the foundation and set the high expectations of the program. And for those who followed. And I mean, we have to thank you guys for actually getting this program going, almost winning the national championship. That's too bad. And yeah, and so you know, I want to talk a little bit about what Darryl talked about, is that, you know, how from year 1 to year 5, how the team and the players evolved. I know year 1, I mean, Darryl and I, like Darryl said, like I had that in my speech. Jack posted up, Coach Lewis posted up the old days. He posted up who made the team, you know, and there was 15 people who tried out. And so Darryl and I are going, holy cow, like, and I said, you go, no, you go. And then finally we went, and sure enough, we were on the team. And then, like, I mean, we were just starstruck. I mean, like, we wouldn't talk. We spent most of our time that year in the library. And well, at least Darryl did. And, you know, but eventually, you know, like, we sort of came into our own and we started playing a little bit more. And it you know, like, it was really something special. And then the next year was a huge graduation thing from the year before, so we were pretty short on talent in terms of, you know, like, having a real good deep squad. And we had a new coach in Don Hunter. And, you know, we struggled a bit that year. I think we went 6-6 in the league that year. And then the third year is when things really, as Darryl said, took off. Greg came. Doug was in his second year. Martin came, and just everything fell into place. And as Darryl said, was like, we realized that we had something special here. And we just worked really, really hard to fulfill our potential. And then, you know, Angus was on that team, and then Angus came back the next year, the fourth year, and we just steamrolled everybody. And we got to the final against Waterloo. We had like a 7-point lead, and it was about 5 minutes left. And I mean, we just blew it. And it was pretty tough to take, but we got revenge the next year, and there was nothing better than leaving your 5 years in your eligibility holding the National Championship Cup. But I would like to take the opportunity to thank my teammates right from day one, from my first year, who who supported me and you know, really put up with a lot of my antics, because there were a lot, and their influence for people like John Laban and Daryl and Greg and Doug and Moose, this guy over here, Randy and Brian was instrumental. They showed me how to conduct myself properly and inspired me to become a better person. It took a bit of time, but I think it happened, and I think the gratitude I have for these guys is, you know, I just can't thank them enough. I'd also like to thank my high school coach, Dale Bradshaw, and my parents, Ralph and Eileen, who provided me with everything a young, aspiring athlete needed. And along with my sister Pat, who's over here, they were my biggest supporters. And I'd really like to thank my family. Some are over here, a couple are sick. My beautiful wife Janet and my son Andreas and my beautiful daughter who's got pneumonia right now and couldn't make it. I mean, they weren't around back then, but I want to thank them for putting up for me and saying, hey, let's watch that video again of 1976. Hey, have you seen these pictures? What about this write-up? I just found this write-up. Let's have dinner and then we'll sit and we'll read the write-up here. And you know, I think they were really interested in that, you know. And I'd like to thank Coach Kirby Shep, who, you know, whose interest in the alumni has sparked a real renewal in the Bison spirit and tradition. And we're here today. Who would ever have thought 5 years ago we would be here today doing this? Who would ever thought we would be having the Herd Hoops Club? What Greg, our leader here, has done in 2.5, 3 years is phenomenal. It's almost unbelievable what we have achieved in 3 years. You know, I don't think there's an alumni club in Canada that matches ours. The newsletter is unbelievable, and that's all Greg. You know, there are times, like Greg, you know, he's such a detail guy that I'll wake up in the morning and there'll be 20 emails there from Greg. I read maybe 2 or 3 of them, but, and in closing, you know, it's such a great honor. I must say that, why couldn't there have been a 3-point line when I played? Thank you very much.
I would like to note that we played the best help defense because of Rick's being on our team. And I think that's what carried us into the national championship, actually. No, you know, we always tease Rick about not playing defense because we had to ground him. But he was a very good defender, especially when he was scoring. He could really play defense then. I'd like to also note that no 2 teammates in Bison history won more regular season league games than Rick Watts and Darryl Rumsey. So it's fitting that they were inducting each other and introducing each other here this evening. Over 5 seasons, they recorded 72 wins, and that was an 86 winning percentage. That record stood for 50 years until last weekend, when the current Bison veteran group of 6 surpassed it with 73 wins. And a couple of them are here tonight, I believe. So congratulations to that current group, and congratulations again to Rick and Darryl on holding that remarkable record for 1/2 century. Congratulations, guys. Okay, our final player inductee is Jim Wright, who played for the Bisons from 1953 to 1957. Jim passed away in 1993. While his family is unable to join us tonight, I am honored to share his accomplishments and accept this award on his behalf. A graduate of Norwood Collegiate, Jim played 4 seasons with the Bisons and was a conference all-star each year. He led the Bisons to 3 consecutive Western Canadian Championships in 1955, 1956, and 1957, and that was a time before they had Canadian Championships. Jim twice led the conference in scoring. He became the first Bison to surpass 1,000 career points and was a 2-time recipient of the Pat Gorman Trophy as team MVP. He was also inducted into the Manitoba Basketball Hall of Fame in 1991. So with great respect and appreciation, we induct Jim Wright into the Herd Hoops Honor Roll. Let's give a round of applause for Jim. Okay, we now move on to the pillar category, one of the highest honors in our program. Pillars are individuals who not only excelled as players, but also had a profound, lasting contributions beyond the court. The 3 pillars inducted tonight each enjoyed outstanding playing careers and have since become the program's most significant supporters. They truly are the pillars of the Bison men's basketball program. The first pillar we honor is John Embry, who played from 1959 to 1964. To introduce John, I invite his former teammate, Glenn Torgerson. Glenn.
Rick set the standard here. I hope I can read this. But, you know, it is a real pleasure for me to be up here to say a few words about my friend and former Bison teammate, John Embry. He was a graduate of Kelvin High School. I like that because I was too. And just as a little aside here, in the late 50s on the Bison team, there were 5 Kelvin graduates playing for them. They all graduated too, so. But John was a key contributor to the University of Manitoba Bison's men's basketball program. From 1959 to 1964, he was a versatile and very dependable performer, playing both forward and center during his career. And he capped it off by earning the most valuable player honor. And I can tell you, from my own experience again, that John was a great guy on and off the court, and just a wonderful teammate. He was blessed with size and skill. He used his height effectively at both ends of the court. Height in those days was 6'3" or 6'4", by the way. And used a highly effective jump shot to be a consistent offensive threat. Just as importantly, as I said before, he was a great teammate, respected for his work ethic and commitment to the collective success of the team. And John's talent extended to his academic and business performance as well. He built a very successful investment management career, starting in Winnipeg and moving on to Toronto. Throughout his professional life, he has remained a loyal and generous supporter of Bison's men's basketball. John Embry's lasting impact as both a valued Bison player and a steadfast supporter of the program has earned him induction as a pillar into the Herd Hoops Honor Roll. Unfortunately, due to health reasons, John is unable to be with us today, and he has asked for someone who we should constantly applaud for all the work he does for this program, but on top of all the other things he's doing, he's accepting this award, Greg Daniels. You hold it and I present.
Thank you, Glenn. John had asked if I'd accept the award on his behalf, and I'm very honored to accept the award on his behalf. John wished he could be here tonight and would have loved hearing his longtime friend, Glenn, introduce him in person. John is deeply grateful for this recognition. We'll be sharing photos and recording this event so that he can enjoy it one evening at his home. So John, if you're watching, thank you for your outstanding contribution as both a player and a supporter. And congratulations on your induction. We wish you well. The second pillar we honor is John Lavin, who played from 1967 to 1972. I had the privilege of being coached by John on the Nicollet Senior Men's basketball team, where we all enjoyed his leadership, his humor, and his love of the game. And it's my pleasure to invite John Gerben, a longtime friend and teammate of John Lavin's, to say a few words.
Well, I want to begin. I see there's a lot of new logos here. This one's no longer any good. This is the new one. How about that one? I had to go to a few buffets so that you could read that. Wow. I very much am honored to introduce John. I'm not going to dwell on his playing days or even his coaching days, but I am going to share some little known facts about John that I'm sure he and his family will appreciate. John was born in Virden, Manitoba. That's in the southwest corner of the province on a farm. And one has to think, what if he'd stayed there? We wouldn't be here, and we would have met John, but he would have been a Brandon Bobcat, which is a scary thought. And one of his teammates would have been Brian Pallister. And I'm sure that Brian would have sought your counsel on all matters basketball and legislative. And just think what that pair could have done. It really boggles the mind. Fortunately, John's parents moved, but he found them. It took a while, and part of it was that when his parents moved from Virden to Winnipeg, they changed the pronunciation of the name. It started, the old world Lowen was gone, and the new word, or new pronunciation, Lavin, appeared. Can you imagine spelling it like that? And John Lavin grew up then in Fort Rouge. It says he starred, now that's not my word. That was scratched out by him earlier. I said participated. But he starred in both football and basketball for Churchill High School in Fort Rouge. He then matriculated to the University of Manitoba. Fortunately, that was on the same bus route as the Thunderbird Pool Hall, where he got a great education at both places, the Thunderbird and the university. During his stay at the university, John, of course, had some summer jobs to try and find his way, his way in life. His first summer job that we talked about is when he became a rod man. And this was not Dennis Rodman by anything. I think John responded to a bulletin board thing saying, we need a rod man at this construction site. Well, unfortunately, John didn't know what a rod man was. And when we had our annual or nightly meeting at the Voyageur, none of his friends knew what a rod man was either. But we had a few ideas. Well, John showed up the first day at work. He pedaled his way to work with 50 feet of rope, thinking that that possibly was what a rod man would do, was tying things. The construction superintendent became a little concerned about that. A rod man doesn't use rope, but John had 50 feet of it. He wasn't sure why. What a rod man does is tie metal rods together for construction. John lasted a week. So clearly labor was not going to be in John's future. The next year, the next summer, he got another job. And I saw him down at the head of the recreation at Grace Hospital. It wasn't a hospital anymore, it was an office for the provincial recreation department. We're running Birds Hill Day Camp. John, what are you doing here? He's the provincial clinician for lacrosse. Lacrosse. You know, he traveled around the province showing kids how to play lacrosse. His first couple clinics didn't go very well because he had the wrong end of the stick. But word is that he set the game back about 10 years. That's been revised. It's only 5 years. After that, he was determined not to be a clinician, and he got into the computer business. Thank goodness he did. He started at Comcheck and go Comcheck to Payworks. And he's been enormously successful, and the best part of it, he's been enormously generous. I love introducing the pillar people because they're doing it for others. It isn't doing it for themselves, they're doing it for others, and they're making sure that others benefit from the program. I got a job in Kitimat, British Columbia, as the Park and Rec Director. Got my first paycheck. Who did it? Comcheck, John's company. I said, this is going to be great. So I got a hold of John. I said, look, John, you're doing my payroll. You know, think you could put a couple zeros in there for me? He said, that should be no problem. And he did. But unfortunately, he put them at the beginning of the numbers, not at the end. But I appreciate the effort anyway. So he's now with Payworks, but before all that, we created JJ and Associates. John, and I don't think we ever had an associate, did we? No. We were going to be real estate barons. And we bought 3 or 4 houses, and we checked in on them every now and then. And all of a sudden, I came back one time from Kitimat, so let's look at the houses. And we went over to one, and who's taking care of the house but Daryl and Don Lamont and Daryl Rumsey. I said, we want to be real estate barons, not slum landlords. I don't know. So we were having a little trouble becoming the slum landlords. Well, no, actually, no trouble at all with you guys here. But John came one day, he says, I got a new venture for us. Great, because this one's not working so hot. I said, what is it? He says, well, it's going to be a combination veterinarian service and taxidermy. And I said, we don't know anything about either one of those. And he said, that's okay, I got a great slogan. Either way, you get your dog back. John Laban.
Well,
Love you, man. Thank you.
thank you. Well, I can throw this out, but I was going to start off by saying thanks, John, for those very kind and generous words. But we really appreciate you making the effort to make it all the way up here. It's always great to see you. You're always welcome, and you've been a great pillar and a great supporter of Bisons ever since you got here from North Dakota. We appreciate it. And we certainly all in the room hope that things get better in Minneapolis sooner than later. Our thoughts are always with you. And I had the great privilege of playing with John for 4 years, along with Bob Town. And I'd say Gordy Putter, but it was actually 3.5 because Gordy broke his arm playing touch football and didn't actually join the team, I think, till January of that year. So, I was very, very lucky to spend a great part of my career with those 3 individuals, all of them very good players. John didn't talk much about my playing career. We'll get to that later. But I'm deeply honored and very humbled to be included in with this group. All the others, obviously, great players and made great contributions to the program as well. I kind of hung around, a lot of injuries. I've always considered myself very fortunate and mostly just to be the plow horse that got to hang around with a bunch of thoroughbreds. And it was a great run. So I would thank everybody that was involved. My first year was interesting. I could score a lot of points in high school. I got 53 in one game. And I was a year behind Bobby Town at Churchill. And Bob had made the Bisons. And I was a football player and a basketball player. And there was quite a few coaches that wanted me to play football, Jack Lewis included. But I loved basketball. And somehow I got it in my head that if Bob Town could make the team, I could make it easy. So I tried out that first year, Jack's first year, and it was a bit the same. We were down to 14 guys, and they didn't know if they were going to keep 10 or 11. And Jack was putting the famous piece of paper up on the wall by the phys ed offices there, and I was petrified. I was not going near that wall all day, and then finally, I think about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I was walking through UMSU and ran into Terry Ball, and Terry said, "You better go look at that list, and congratulations." And that was a real thrill, and it was, I was just so lucky to have played with so many great players, Terry, Bob, Ted, Ross, in my first years, John when he came along. And I should say that my first year wasn't great. I was the 11th player on a 10-man team. At that time, they could only travel with 10, so my road trip was to the University of Winnipeg. The second road trip was my first time on an airplane to the University of Calgary. We got to the gym. I realized I had 2 left runners. We had to borrow a right runner from one of the players in Calgary so that I could suit up for the game. So that tells you a bit about my career. But there were obviously great players. After that first year, Jack called me into his office in the summer, and he wanted to have a little chat. And he told me that there was a couple of guys coming up from the U.S. that one for sure, Cliff Cornelius, was going to be a star on the team, and he was going to make the team. And another kid coming up who'd played a year at the University of North Dakota. He didn't know much about him, but he thought he'd probably be pretty good. And then he then proceeded to walk me down to Henry Jansen's office, who was the coach of the football team, who handed me a playbook. That got my dander up a little bit, and I was very fortunate. I didn't have a car, but I had Bob Town, Ted Stowes, and Ross Wedlake, and Terry Ball, and Bob or Ted would pick me up pretty much every night that summer, and we'd head out to the East Gym, and I learned how to play the game, practicing with and playing with all Canadians and great players, and guys that played on the national team, played on the Olympic team. Ross was there all the time, Billy. I was just so fortunate to be around that group. We really didn't have any coaching in high school. I was lucky. I got to a couple of clinics with Vic Pruden, and he taught me some fundamentals. But there's one way to get better, and that's to play with the best. And I got to play and practice every day with the best, and fortunately was able to hang on. And it was a great run. And just because some of the younger guys won't realize it, but Manitoba had great programs. There was a downtime during the 60s. Between 1971 and 1977, over those 7 years, the Bisons went to the national tournament 5 times. Lost twice in the final, and finally in '76 won the national championship. Quite a record. At the same time, between 1972 and 1982, 2 senior men's teams, St. Andrews and the Nicollet Inn, went to the National Senior Men's Championship 8 out of 12 years, winning 6 of them. All basically with bred in Manitoba basketball players out of a province that had 4% of the population. So Manitoba was a real hotbed. Had some great players, had some great coaches. And not only did we have players and coaches, but we had support staff. Wasn't a better manager in the country than John Brown in terms of what he did for the program. John Restivo, same thing, followed up. We had great trainers. The guys that gave us the towels and mopped up behind us did a tremendous job and were there for us all the way. And we just had unbelievable support from the fans. From a group of guys that manned the scorers table and the stats table, and the support was really unbelievable, and I'm extremely grateful for that. I'm also very proud of the people I played with and was able to coach. So many of them became educators, worked with disadvantaged youth, and provided guidance to young people. For so many years, and have made a real contribution and a real difference in our community. And I'm proud of every one of you, and grateful for the long friendships. I've been very fortunate. As John mentioned, my first foray into the workforce wasn't all that great, and I realized at a very young age that if I was going to be successful, I better find a relative to hire me. And I was lucky one did. And we had a great run. And I've had a great run and have been very successful. I should also mention that I'm very proud to have my children here and 2 of my grandchildren, all of whom have been taught to call him Uncle Awesome. So that's the type of friendship we've had. But I attribute the success I've had in my business career to some of the things I learned, a lot of the things I learned while playing for the Bisons. And we had such strong leadership from Terry and Irv and Ross and Bob and Teddy and John at the beginning, and later on from Rick and Darryl. And I should say that in my 5 years, I think Rick and Darryl were probably the only 2 rookies who were basically guaranteed to make the team and basically started in their first year, which was very seldom done in those years. There was usually a couple of years on the bench before you got a lot of playing time. But that just shows you how great their talent was. And we joke a lot about Rick's defense, but I got to tell you, there was nobody better in the country at shooting the gap and stealing that pass from the guard to the forward than Rick and taking it the other way. So all kudos to him. But what I learned about leadership, I learned it was always team before self. I learned, how you could get if you worked hard at it, looked after all the details, and practiced your trade as best you could, as often you could. And if it hadn't been for my time at the University of Manitoba and playing with such great leadership and meeting so many great guys, I know that I would never have had a successful career as I've managed to scrape out. So I'm extremely grateful to that. I'm honored and proud to be able to give back to the Bison program and to the University of Manitoba because that's where my success has come from. I will never forget that. I'll always cherish that. A great group of guys. We've been friends for 50 years and more. Most of us will remain friends as long as we're alive. It's great to be with you, and I love you all and appreciate you all so much. And I'm very, very honored to be included in this first go-around of the Hoops Honor Roll. So thank you very much.
The third pillar we honor tonight is Dave Mills, who played from 1959 to 1964. Dave was an outstanding player and remains a passionate supporter of the program, continuing to attend several games each season. It's my pleasure to call forward Coach Shep to say a few words about Dave Mills.
Thanks, Greg. First of all, what a great job on these photos. Eh? Like they did a really great artistic look of them, especially the one of Daryl Rumsey's sister. I thought was really good. That one looked great. It was a little oddly placed, but I thought it was a really great photo. But anyways, thanks, Mike. I think probably put those together, but they were really good. So. Yeah, it's my distinct honor to talk about Dave Mills, my friend. Dave played from 59 to 64. As he said to me the other day, it's been 61 years since he played his last game in the brown and gold. And so, I mean, that might lead you to ask a question that 61 years is, so he played his last game 10 years before I was born. So the question is, what the heck am I doing up here talking about Dave Mills? And it's a fair question. And I'll just maybe go into my relationship with Dave a little bit. So when I got the job here 17 years ago, as I mentioned to you earlier, I was trying to connect the dots and sort of build on the history of the program and get to know different people. And one of the people that someone suggested you got to meet Dave Mills. He's a person you should reach out to. And so Dave and I went for coffee. And my immediate impression of Dave, a big, strong guy, stoic, not a very effusive personality for those that know Dave, but all business, to the point, kind, generous. And the thing that stood out to me more was how much being a Bison was a big part of his life and how much he took pride in that. And he was the first guy that helped me sort of connect those dots a little bit. So over the years, we began to go for breakfast very regularly. A little less often at first, and then COVID happened, and then more often since then, and spending a fair bit of time together. And I've really enjoyed that time with Dave. And names came up. I mentioned this earlier when I started. He started to become names. And one thing I started to learn was in most of this people's era here, the older generation, it seemed like nicknames were a big thing. They're not as big now, but our young guys are really bad at giving themselves nicknames, right? We just have like initials most of the time or whatever. But so, for instance, Scooter, Torgy, Old Soldier, Lumpy, Zam, Stumps or Stumpy, Taxi, Duck, The Rat, Rosie, Moose, Pepsi. were ones that I came up with. The only guy that I think didn't have a nickname was Rick Watts, because he gave out all the nicknames. Turns out. So, but all of those are kind of silly nicknames, and they either are a play on some weird disfigurement they probably had with their bodies, or was part of a story that can't be retold. But there was one that was different. One nickname was different, the Beast. And the Beast was Dave Mills. So Dave was known as the Beast, not for some silly story or some silly disfigurement, but his reputation as a player. Okay? A tough rebounder, voracious player. The Beast earned his reputation with his physical traits, and that succeeded him long into even post his Bison days. So Dave came out of Kelvin High School. Kelvin seems to be a theme here. Obviously, Kelvin must have been a powerhouse in the 50s. I don't know, but you guys had a lot of players coming out of Kelvin. But he actually had to play on the JV team his first year, and then was called up his last year, and then played on the varsity team many years after that. He was the two-time most valuable player. He led the league in scoring. He led the league in rebounding. 1 year led the league in both scoring and rebounding, and was named an All-Star of the Western Conference. Back then, there was no national championships that you could go to, but Dave was certainly a star in his era of those times. He famously once said to me that he led every league in rebounding that he ever played in, which will give you the nickname of the Beast. With no three-point line, Dave was known as a face-up, outside shooter that could also mix it up inside. In our terms today, we would call that a stretch five from what he was, meaning someone who can play physical inside but can stretch the floor and hit it. And with no three-point line, he was definitely ahead of his time. Now, and the more and more I learned about his game, the more I realized Dave could really help us. And I got some news here to announce tonight. We managed to register Dave in 3 classes, so he's eligible for tomorrow's game against the Westmen. Be a perfect fit. So 3 classes I've got, Dave. And don't look so scared, Dave. They're easy classes. Okay? So he went on to play 16 years of senior ball. Senior ball, for the young guys in the room, was even a higher level than playing for the Bisons, and they played at national championships. They won 3 national titles, of which 2 of them, I believe, were almost all Bison guys. A couple times they brought up some guys from North Dakota to play with them. But incredible record. Dave was actually asked to try out for the Canadian national team at least once. Didn't make the team. Strangely, the coach told him he ran too much. Again, ahead of his time. I've got you in 3 classes. Get yourself ready to go for tomorrow. Now, he didn't make the Pan Am Games in '67, where we hosted the Pan Am Games '67, for those young guys that know. But he was part of a group of guys that scrimmaged against the teams that came up to play in the Pan Am Games, and that group had a better record than the actual national team that played in the Pan Am Games. 2 famous games against medalist teams, Mexico and USA in there. Dave got a chance to match up against a player who was MVP of the NBA in that year, Wesley Unseld. Yeah. So now Wesley Unseld, one of the only players to win Rookie of the Year and MVP the same year. Dave gets to match up with Wes. Now, that score didn't go their way and wasn't very flattering, but Dave and his teammates there proved that they could play with anyone in the world. So pretty cool accomplishments now. And even though he went on and did all those great things, in my talking to Dave, I know he's the most proud of and most connected to his time with the Bisons. He feels a great connection to the University of Manitoba, and that came out in every time I'd say to you. And one thing I would share is we have these playful discussions with guys on my team right now. One in particular, Tito Basotos, is here today. We're always talking about comparing current generation to older, and it's a playful banter of who had the best sort of generation, and no one can win those arguments, but it's fun to have them. And one of the things I say to them to kind of quiet them down, that I think that all the young guys need to realize, is it's easy to have a great view when you're standing on someone else's shoulders, right? And I think that that's something that all the pillars kind of have in common here, and it's a great thing for us to recognize is we're standing on those shoulders. Now, you know, I've seen an analogy that I think fits really well, that athletic progress is a lot like compounding interest. So to use a term, Dave, his career was in the world of finance. So it's kind of why I'm picking on this, is that it's a bit like compounding interest in that each generation earns returns on the investments of the past, and the things that they do build on this. And that's a really big part of being a pillar. I mean, a pillar is something that's our foundation that holds up kind of the roof above us, and Dave certainly has been that for our program for a long time. But in all my conversations with Dave, the thing that sticks out more to me, as I mentioned, is his connection with the Bison and his tremendous support. So I would say to Dave, but to all the pillars as well, that we celebrate you for letting us stand on your shoulders so we can see far, and we thank you for paving the way so we could run fast. Now, I mentioned 61 years since Dave Mills' last game in the brown and gold, but the cool thing is I don't think he's ever really taken off the jersey. So thanks, Dave, and welcome to the Herd Hoops Club Honor Roll. Here, I'll put it here. Do you want me to carry this back for you?
Well, one of the things I've done to be a pillar is keep track of things, especially things doing with money and so on. That was where my career ended up. And I've been counting things here, and I'm the last guy. So everyone should be pretty pleased. This part of the evening is over, but anyway, 60 years ago, that's a long time to have memories. And one of the things I figured I'd better do is a little research before I got here, so that I was reasonably accurate with things that had happened so long ago. And being named a pillar is certainly different, but it's something that I think we need, and it's something I'm proud to be, and hopefully things will keep going and improve as we raise money and the finances are there, and recruiting will change perhaps, but it's going to be interesting because everything's up in the air at the moment with the changes that are going on in the U.S., and it makes it much more difficult to keep the players in Canada. But one of the things I did, I looked back at my basketball career with the Bisons. I played at Calvin. Well, I played a little bit, sat a little bit, and so on. So I was not one of the stars that are recruited aggressively or anything. Not that any stars were recruited in those days. But my basketball career at the U of M got off to a slow start. The first year I didn't make any of the teams, not the JV or the varsity. I was called up in the middle of the year when one of the players was called to the varsity team. But in the second year I was there, which was 1959, 1960, I did make the JV team, and I went on from there, and I led the league in scoring, which was my first time I was able to do things like that, and also rebounds. But the next year, third year I was there, I was fortunate that Jim Bullock was the coach. He put me on the team, and within I think on the second game I was played, I was in the starting lineup, and things just kept going on from there. From then on, I was on the varsity team, led the league in scoring, led the league in rebounding. And so that was my second team that I led the league in scoring. But we were unfortunate in that we didn't do anything great on the floor. We didn't have great talent. BC was in the league by then, and it was quite a bit more difficult to be at the top. Edmonton, Saskatoon were always powerful, but it was at that time we were still in the league and being very aggressive to make things keep happening. But I think that this meeting has gone on without much talk about the pillar aspect of things, and I think that's something that is going to have to continue if we're going to continue to grow the team. It's I guess a coincidence or something, but John Embry and I were in the same business, and we both got, I think I actually introduced John to Kirby, and it was from then on that we were trying to raise money for the Bison program, and John was the first big donator, and it's gone on from there, and we've got things moving along pretty good, and we've been able to raise the money for a full-time assistant and other things, and the recruiting. So I'm sorry my speech hasn't got the humor in it, but I'm trying to make the message that if any people want to help the Bisons from here, raising money is one of the things we can do. I'm not too sure about our ability to handle numbers, because I think Greg had mentioned that he'd like the introductions to be 3 minutes and the acceptance speeches to be 5 minutes. I may be the only one that's anywhere near that time limit. But anyway, we'll have to hope that the players the current players have perhaps better use of numbers than the ex-players had. But the ex-players are a good bunch of guys. I remember them pretty good. I mean, it's 60-some years since I played my last game, but I played against all these guys, and I think I held my own with most of them. And after my Bison years, I moved on to St. Andrews, which was a powerful team in the Winnipeg Senior League, and in our years, Winnipeg Senior League was was something we looked up to. It was the Senior League was a graduate for us from Bisons. The Bison League, the Bison in the Western Conference at that time didn't have any post-season activity or Canadian activity, so it was something with Canadian championships for senior basketball, and we enjoyed them, and we had many years where we were in the running, and then actually won 3 championships, and it was with Bison players. It was a a group of Bisons that came after me, Ross Wedlake, Ted Stoves, Jaime Fox, and so on. And that we built that into a team that was won some championships. But as far as what goes from here, I think if Bisons are going to continue to be a strong factor in Canadian basketball, college basketball, we've got to keep the pillars coming and get things going. So I would say, I hope there's lots of pillars here. Thank you.
Actually, Dave, you're not the last speaker. We do have one more. Earlier this season, on November 29th, we inducted the 1976 national basketball team into the Herd Hoops Honor Roll in conjunction with the 50th anniversary celebration. While the team was celebrated and received induction certificates that night, they did not have the opportunity to respond. So this evening, I'm pleased to invite Grant Watson on behalf of the team to say a few words. Grant. And this is the Moose that you've heard about, Moose Grant Watson.
Thank you. Daryl and Rick both said almost everything I wanted to cover. I was told by Greg the same thing, 5 minutes. My first draft was 15 minutes. I've got it down to 6 or 7. I'm going to try to follow what they asked, even though Rick begged me not to roast anybody, but that's gone by the wayside now. On behalf of our team, and just so you know, that's why you couldn't read, I did a 20 font. On behalf of our team, I want to thank the Herd Hoops Committee for selecting us to be the first team inducted into the honor roll. I've been asked to talk about our team and why we were able to achieve a national championship 50 years ago. We had 3 star players in Darryl Rumsey, Rick Watts, and Martin Riley. You've already heard about Darryl and Rick extensively tonight, and I'm not going to dwell too much on that because everything's out there and Martin's accomplishments are well known throughout the basketball community. I'm going to focus on the rest of the players because as a team, you have to have everybody working together. We had Doug Freeth and Greg Daniels as the other 2 starters on that team. We had Ray McCall, Brian Rumsey, Randy Cassano, Kevin Kelleher, and myself rounded out the players. Coach Hunter and Coach Gus, along with Russ Horrible, who kept us taped and iced. Doug Slobodian, who tried to explain to Rick what an assist was. Ross Zilke was our equipment manager. Unfortunately, Doug and Ross have passed away and aren't with us anymore, and they're deeply missed from our team. Doug Freeth was our power forward, and he was a dominant, tough player in the paint and on the glass. He was outstanding defensively and usually checked the toughest player on the other team, forward-wise. Doug became a social worker and has spent his time helping others after leaving university. Greg was our 2 guard. Other teams dreaded playing against Greg. He was a terrific shooter, but he really excelled in defense. He would have been an All-Canadian on probably any other team, but because we were so blessed with talent, wasn't given the recognition that he so rightfully deserved. Greg, after leaving university, became a super rose in the education ranks to become an assistant superintendent for the River East and Transcona School Division. Brian Rumsey was a very good player and a tough rebounder. He always played under Darrell's shadow and never got possibly the notoriety that he should have. He probably had the toughest job on our team, having to check Rick every practice. Brian was a pass first, shoot second type of player, which typified our team's commitment to winning. Brian finished his schooling with an MBA and worked as a computer software application specialist. Randy Cassano was a leader on our floor. He was a very smart player and used his skills to control the ball and set up other guys. Randy went on to be an outstanding high school coach. He also coached at the university level, is still a high performance coach, I believe, with the province of Manitoba. He won 3 provincial championships and was coach of the year in Manitoba. Ray McCall was Darrell's backup center. He was a physical player with very sharp elbows. He wasn't dirty, but nobody that played against Ray came out non-bruised. Ray became a lawyer and now lives on Vancouver Island. Kevin Keller was the only addition to the 75-76 team from the year before. He was from Brandon and a terrific athlete. Kevin was a good shooter and a great leaper. His energy level was always at 100%. Kevin now lives in Thompson and owns the Ford dealership up there. So why were we able to win that year? Many teams had stars and talented players. What did we have that they didn't? To answer that, I have to mention losing the national final the year before. Rick said we were up 7 with 5 to go. I think it was 10. And we had that game in hand. We were dominating them. And then at the 5-minute mark, we changed. We changed the way we were playing. We no longer were playing to win. We were playing not to lose. We took our tempo out. We did everything we shouldn't have done. We should have just continued to play the game. It was a tough loss, and it stuck with us and festered over the summer like an open wound. From the first practice that following September, we had a singular mission: to win the national championship. We knew we were the best team in Canada, and we believed in ourselves. The lessons learned from losing the year before define the way we played that year. We never played not to lose. We played every game to the final buzzer to win. It made us unified as a team. Some of the toughest games that year were our scrimmages. We didn't mix players to balance the teams out. We had our stars, and as Rick liked to call us, the schmegs, on the other side. For the non-starters, every scrimmage was a national final. We played those games aggressively, and contrary to some of their beliefs, the starters did not win every game in practice. And when we did lose, many of them were very close games. But we took pride pushing those guys every practice to be better. We spent extra time in the gym before and after, improving our skills and just enjoying playing against each other. I can remember after practice, tired and sitting down on that railing or whatever the heck you called it, watching Greg and Martin and Kevin go at each other one-on-one for hours. It was like watching a UFC cage match. That's probably why they ended up, as Rick nicknamed most of us, they were called the Rats, because that's what they looked like, clawing and fighting for every possession. Another key component that needs to be mentioned is IQ. I don't mean grade point average, I mean basketball IQ. We all understood our roles on the team. We understood the game and what was happening in real time during those games. We were able to make adjustments to correct issues as they arose without having to call timeouts. We were able to recognize high probability scoring situations and exploit them regardless of who was on the floor. Our players were interchangeable when they came in. As a team, we became very close friends. We all liked each other. We went out together. We partied together. We played games and other activities together. You could find us on campus in the pinball room or down at Izzy's by Tony's Pizza on Pembina Highway. The camaraderie we had was a direct result of Rick and Daryl's leadership as captains. No player was ever left out. It was a bond between us that separated us from other teams. It was a bond that united us like a family. It is this bond that made our team unstoppable. The bonds we made 50 years ago are still in place today. As mentioned already, we get together every 5 years to celebrate our championship season, but more importantly, to revel in our friendship. We know if any of us needed help, the rest of us would be there for us to this very day. Most of us still live in Winnipeg, and we get together for lunches on a regular basis. In our late stages of life now, we even let the wives attend on occasions. I want to mention the Coach Kirby and the current team. As alumni, and I'm sure I can speak for Bob and Ted and the St. Andrews guys that have provided the leadership for our group coming up, we want nothing more than another championship here. We cheer for you, we hope for you, and we're counting on tomorrow being a good game. I want to thank you for listening to an old man telling you about his best friends. I hope whatever insight into our team you take away can be useful to those of you who want to succeed on the court and just life in general. Thank you from the 75-76 team.
No pressure, guys. You know, Grant spoke of the other players, but Grant was the best sixth man in the country at that time. And he was also known as the most devastating dunker in the country at that time as well. And he's coming off the bench. So kudos to you, Grant, and thank you for those kind words tonight. I sincerely would like to thank our Hoops Committee for all their work, my fellow committee members for putting on this evening, but the many, many other things that we've accomplished. And we believe we've built strong momentum and are committed to sustaining it. We are especially eager to welcome new and younger members to help carry this work forward. And if you're interested, please let me know. Thank you all for being here. This is a wonderful evening, celebrating the proud tradition of Bison men's basketball. Congratulations once again to our inductees. You're the inaugural inductees into the Herd Hoops Honor Roll. And please enjoy the rest of your evening.